Okay, now take a few minutes to do exercises 5 and 6. Look at what they're asking you and then do the exercises. Pause the video now, do that, and then come back and we'll discuss them. Okay, so exercise 5 doesn't even tell us to translate anything. It just tells us that line L has been translated along vector AB. Here's our original line. And it results in this translation, or this image, L prime. And we're asked, what do we know about L and L prime? Well, from the exercises that we just did, we have, and we didn't formally prove it, but you will do more formal proofs in geometry. What we know is that L is parallel to its image, L prime. We could also write this, L is parallel to T of L if T is my translation along vector AB. So that's what we know. Okay, so let's look at exercise 6. And this may have surprised you a little bit when you did this translation. So this looks a little different than the translations we did in exercises 2, 3, and 4. But hopefully you found something that's common here. So here's my translation vector, DE. And I'm asked to translate a set of parallel lines. So this is line 1. Call it L1. And here's line, this was a different color. Here's line 2. We'll call it L2. And these lines, of course, go on in every direction, don't they? But they're not always drawn with the arrows on them. But it's an entire line in the plane. Okay, so we're asked to translate both of these images along DE. So we can do this in one movement. So I'm going to slide D so that it coincides with E. And I'm going to try to make sure I did it along that line. Okay, so there are my images. So I'm just going to lift up my overhead and trace them. So line 1 is right here. So I'm going to call this L1 prime. And line 2 is right here. This is L2 prime. The image of L2. Okay, so we've drawn them. We were asked to translate, label the images of the lines, so we've done that. And if lines L1 and L2 are parallel, so we're told if L1 is parallel to L2, what do we know about the translated images? So what you might realize is that L1 prime is parallel to L2 prime. My images will also be parallel lines. And it might be good for you to think about the reason for that. You could kind of, I know that L2 and L2 prime are parallel, but L2 and L1 are parallel, so therefore this L1 has to be parallel to L2, and we could go through the same line of reasoning to realize that all 4 of these lines are parallel to each other. So therefore the images are parallel to one another. This seems obvious, but it's going to be used in proofs when we're trying to prove things about shapes and images that get translated, and of course congruency when we're trying to prove that 2 images are congruent to one another or that they are same size and shape. So this is going to be a really important piece that we can use. as we do that. Okay, so let's look at the problem set just to summarize this lesson. We'll have you do the exit ticket, but let's look at the lesson summary together. So this is on the problem set page. Two lines are said to be parallel if they do not intersect. And so that's something that we assumed from what we knew before. And we saw that in the first exercise. This last one, given a line L and a point P not lying on it, there is at most one line passing through P and parallel to L. So we saw that. That's going to be an important thing that we'll use in proofs. And then translations map parallel lines to parallel lines. And we saw that in this exercise. Okay, so we had a set of parallel lines, L1 and L2. They mapped to a new set of parallel lines, L1 prime and L2 prime. Okay, so in your exit ticket, you're asked to perform some translations of points and lines, and then in both of those, and then asked what you can know about the translated figures. Okay, and then in your problem set, you have angles, lines, and a quadrilateral that will all be translated along a vector. And you'll be sketching and labeling everything that you translate, and then asked to think about what you know about those translations. So that should be pretty quick and a good exercise for you. Okay, that's lesson 3.